Calling all nerds!
Hey, get over here. He's calling all nerds.
Oh, jeez. Here come the nerds. It's time to talk to the interested and interesting.
I was wondering when the nerd would come.
And here's your host, Mike Thayer.
All right, welcome to yet another episode of Calling All Nerds. I'm your host, Mike Thayer. This is where we talk to the interested and the interesting. This week is brought to you yet again by me, by Mike Thayer. Actually, it's brought to you by my novel, Passage to Avalon, Book 1, in the Epic Adventures of the Techno Wizard series. It's pretty awesome. The audiobook comes out, well, I think by the time this airs, it will have just come out. Mid-September, September 15th, I think it's gonna go live. So I narrated the audiobook myself. It was an incredible learning experience having the setup in my closet with comforters hung up and the rest. I would do it very differently now that I've gone through it and learned how to edit and learned a lot about audio. I'm still kind of just working with what I got. But it was a super cool, fun experience. I've always wanted to do sort of professional voice acting, whether it be a cartoon or a video game or a book on tape. Book on tape, that totally dates me. An audiobook. That book on Morse code I've done. So that was a great experience. So hopefully you can check that out. Another fantastic way to enjoy a fantastic book. Passage to Avalon, Book 1 in the Epic Adventures of the Techno Wizard. Book 2 coming out soon as well. I'll talk about that in future podcasts. So for those of you that are enjoying, that have the benefit of the video feed, I'm going to do a switch right now. So I actually already recorded the intro to this podcast a while back. Didn't introduce it right, so I've redone it now. The beard has grown longer, so you're going to get a maybe kind of an audio quality shift as well, but a beard shift in the video quality. So be prepared for the beard shift. This week, as I mentioned last week, I talked to someone I've wanted to talk to for a very, very long time, and that person is Stephen Groo. So Stephen Groo is, as I said, the head founder, the brain CEO of Utah Wolf Productions. So Steve Groo, Utah Wolf Productions, he has made over 200 short and feature-length movies. People call them low budget, people call them micro budget, people call them independent. I think Steven just sees himself as a filmmaker doing the best with what he can. So he recently drew the attention of some Hollywood folks. Jared Hess, he's the producer and writer behind movies like Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre, one of my very favorite comedies of all time. John Heder and Jack Black. So in the end, in this documentary, I haven't seen the documentary, it comes out here in a couple of months. Hopefully by the time this podcast airs, the documentary will be out. But Stephen Groo got Jack Black to be in one of his movies, which was a remake of this movie called The Unexpected Race. So Stephen saw this interview as an opportunity to tell his side of the story. Now, his side of the story being his side of the documentary story. As I said, he was the subject of an upcoming documentary called The Insufferable Groo. So The Insufferable Groo kind of catalogs his journey to get The Unexpected Race across the line and to get into film festivals and to get Jack Black in there. His meetings with Jared Hess and the like. Talking with Stephen, he was not very pleased. I kind of thought this would be, I'm sure he still does, and it could still be kind of his big break. A lot of eyes are on him due to the involvement from Jack Black in this documentary, but it doesn't cast him in a very good light. I read a lot of reviews online. They liked the documentary, but said Stephen is just not a very sympathetic character. He's seen as insufferable, as the title says, and very demanding and controlling, and delusional was a comment they used. And I talked to him about that, and he said, look, at the beginning, and again, we'll get into this in the interview, but it was supposed to be the magic of Groo, and it changed from the magic of Groo to the insufferable Groo. He was not very pleased about that, and I don't think anyone would be if they were in his shoes. One of the other reasons I wanted to talk to him, so I've been watching Stephen Groo's movies, Utah Wolf Productions movies, clips and trailers and whatever else online for probably more than a decade, since my college days. Now, I think Stephen is not the fact is not lost on him, the kind of comments and stuff that people say online about his work. And as I said before last week, you could not find a more passionate person about what they do than Stephen Groo. And that's what blew me away when I first saw his movies. I was like, look, you can call them kind of low budget and whatever else, but like, you cannot deny the amount of passion and effort that this guy puts into making these movies. I remember watching this clip and went like, geez, that guy had to cobble together his costumes and swords, and he's running around up in the hills and above Provo. I'm like, this guy's got some serious passion. 206 short and feature length films, and to not probably get a whole lot of positive reinforcement along the way, this guy has to be super passionate about what he does, and I kind of want to see what makes this guy tick. Another thing too, probably one of the more central reasons why I wanted to talk to Stephen was, as we said, last week we had Greg Olson. It's very easy for somebody, like I just left my job, for someone to come up to me and go, you know what, Mike, awesome job. We're supporting you all the way. Follow your dream. Get after it, man. Such a cool thing to see you, leave the corporate world and stick it to the man and follow your dream. And, people said the same thing to Greg, but Greg also shared a story of when, the money wasn't coming in and his wife was like, maybe you need to find another job. Now, they looked for a very short period of time before they realized that it's kind of painting or nothing. But I kind of want to know, when do people stop, as I say in the interview, when do people stop saying follow your dream and they start saying wake up? Like, what's the line between dogged and delusional? I want to know that because I want to be self-aware about that. Because again, now people are saying follow your dream. Well, what about 3 years from now? What about 5 years from now? What about 10 or 20? 2 decades like Stephen Groo, when you don't get your big break and all your work doesn't pan out the way you want it to, or get the right attention or have the right reviews. Do you keep going? When is that line where people kind of say, hey, dude, you're going to have to start looking into something else? I want to know that because I don't want to get to that. I don't ever want to get to that point. So I talked to Stephen a little bit about that, about kind of what is that line between dogged and delusional? How do you know when you're one and not the other? Is there any difference? After the interview and talking with some other people, it might just be hindsight, whether you're successful. Kind of is the judge on whether you were delusional or whether you were, whether you were dogged. So anyway, a super interesting interview with Stephen. I'm really glad I did it. We share a lot of common interests. I kind of go into the lightning round. You'll see we kind of, talk shop on all things nerd. So I am very, very glad that in the call to all nerds that my friend Stephen Groo responded. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Stephen. Stephen Groo, correct me if I get any of this wrong. So I got local filmmaker here in Provo. You born and raised in Provo? No.
I was born in LA, California.
Oh, okay.
And then about a year and a half after we moved to Washington State, then a little after 3 years of age, then I came to Utah.
Okay, so you've been here for the vast majority of your life. Produced nearly 200 short and feature-length films. Is that
206.
Right? 206.
In 20 years.
That's crazy. Including the most recent film, The Unexpected Race, which stars Jack Black and Jared Hess. I think has a big part in it.
Jared Hess is in it, and John Heater.
And John Heater, okay. That's what I thought. And then I was looking through IMDb, and I didn't see his pop up. And then it recently showed at the Cindy Underground Film Festival. Is that right?
It's going to.
It's going to. So when does that go on?
September 15th.
September, okay. You were also the subject of a new documentary by Scott Christopherson entitled The Insufferable Groo, which debuted at the acclaimed Sheffield International Documentary Festival earlier this year.
That's correct.
How did that go?
It was fine. I mean, it was their world premiere, and they enjoyed it, and it was fun to, be a part of that. And
did you get to go out?
Yeah,
you did.
Yeah, both my wife and I were able both to go out, and then we just had 5 days fun in England.
Not a bad gig. So I'll tell you why I'm pumped to interview. So I've been watching clips and trailers and whatever since like my college days. So like 2000. So that would be pre-2008. Someone clued me in on the Utah Wolf production. So I've been watching this stuff for a very long time. The aim of my podcast, so my podcast is called Calling All Nerds. That's the title of my podcast. So And I said I talk to the interesting and interested. And so, like your stuff or loathe your stuff, no one can deny Stephen Groo is an interesting dude. And so that's what I was like, you know what? If I'm talking to the interested and interesting, I got to talk. My short list of people, when I first started, I was like, I got to talk to Stephen Groo. I got to get this guy over here and kind of see what makes him tick. So number one, you got to Sheffield. I saw there was a Kickstarter to get you out there. So let's talk about the documentary first.
Okay.
I haven't seen the film yet because it's not available. I've been like scrounging around. Is there any possible way I can see this thing yet? But it's when's the mass going to be able to see it? When's the public going to be able to see this thing?
So ironically, it got into the Film Quest film festival that's going to be showing on September 8th in Provo.
Oh, okay.
At the Velour. And within 2 days, the tickets sold out. Because kind of what happened is that with that Kickstarter you mentioned, there was supposed to be a premiere that was supposed to go with that, or
I think I saw
a
that.
screening.
Yep. It's in Salt Lake or something they were going to do? Or?
That's what they were planning on.
Planning
I mean, I'm not over the doc at all. I'm the subject, but
sure.
They kind of, once they found out they got into this film fest as the local premiere in Utah, then they kind of
shifted
it to their, like, might as well just kind of move that direction. So there's that kind of feel, but I don't know what other screenings they're going to have. And then it just landed in 2 more film fests out there. I'm not at liberty to say just because we have to wait for that, but they do. It's kind of bounced around, but I really don't know when that's going to be available. They did say that there is a distributor that has picked it up, 2 distributors, one for the US and the global. And by January of next year, there should be 4 or 5 theater releases of The Insufferable. And then whatever the distributor does after that, they're going to put it on all their platforms and all that. So
sweet. I love a good documentary, and that was, I can't remember who first clued me in on it. When I saw it pop up, I was like, yes. To be honest, I can't believe there hasn't already been one. Because I'm looking around, I was like, I don't see anyone doing what you're doing as far as when you said 206 short and feature length films. Like, do you know of anyone else on the planet who's been that prolific as far as generating content?
Not really.
Because I remember like 10 years ago, I was like, why hasn't this guy got on the radar of, like, it wouldn't be Jimmy Fallon back then, but like Conan O'Brien or like someone seeing this guy that's like, holy cow, this guy has generated all this stuff. So when the documentary popped up, I was like, that's perfect. I can't wait to see it. So I'll keep a lookout then, especially if it's got picked up by distributors and stuff. I'm sure it'll...
And there is the Insufferable Groo Journey to England that me and my wife did. So what we're doing is, as we're bouncing around to these different places, and of course the world premiere, we shot a video blog and showed everything of where me and my wife looked at. So there's a tidbit of that's on my Vimeo on demand, and then any day it should be on Amazon, UK and US. So
sweet. So that's, being the subject of a documentary. So I've read all the reviews. Obviously I haven't seen it, but I read all the reviews, and they say it's a pretty unflinching look at you and your life and your family and your work. And not all the movie paints you in the best light, at least from what I've seen in the reviews. How was that, to look at yourself kind of from someone else's point of view? How was that experience? Has it caused you to like rethink some things, to look at yourself differently, to do things differently?
No, because it was done wrong.
You think it was?
Yeah, there's parts of it that originally what it was supposed to, I don't know if you knew, the original title was The Magic of Groo. And when it changed to Insufferable Groo, and I'm not insufferable. I'm not a narcissist. I never have been. I've had more of taking care of my cast and crew in the midst of hard days than how they painted it. Or I wouldn't have made 206 movies in 20 years.
Sure.
I had people that have been with me for over 10 years in my filmmaking career.
I see a lot of the same faces pop up.
Yep.
So I know that's just people in front of the camera too. I'm sure there's plenty of people behind the camera.
Yeah, and I graduated with people when I went to the university, and more or less I gave them their acting resume. And, some went off to kind of do their own thing, but they never look back and say that was a waste of their time. And so one thing that the doc paints is that they're interviewing one person that is in the trailer that's never worked with me before.
That's the girl who's all done up in her bonnet and whatever.
Actually, no.
No, okay.
That's one of them.
Okay.
She was my main actress in the film, and again, she never had worked with me before, but even then, because of how they've edited the document, the doc, it doesn't show the content of what it is. You can easily cut in some random shot of something happening on set.
Sure.
But again, you're seeing what the flare-up is and not what caused it.
Yep.
And, being insufferable doesn't mean that I'm some dictator on set. And what many people don't understand too is that because things are not as heavily funded like normal productions, I have to wear about 15 different hats.
Yep.
And so I'm not only the director, I'm also the assistant director if I don't have one that day. Or I'm also the caterer. I got to make sure that everyone's on the time clock. I have to worry about the weather report. I have to worry about the one actor that might be running late. And we always have made sure that in pre-production, which is the biggest part of, I think, any production, is to make sure that that one day, no matter what happens, happens.
Sure.
And when you have 30 people coming to dedicate their one day for that one day, you only have that one day to shoot those scenes.
Yeah, you got to make it work.
And I'm not going to take 3 weeks to do the one scene. And one thing that we ran behind of was I never shot 4K before. And that's one thing that's never brought up in the documentary of what causes the heavy stress on that specific shoot, on that specific day.
So Unexpected Race was 4K?
That one was.
Okay.
This is the second time
I've done
it.
One in 2003 or something,
And
right?
so the original one was just normal high definition. Well,
right.
Actually just high digital. But this one was shot 4K and we only had so many memory sticks. And my speed of filming to get through, I usually don't have to worry about space.
Right.
And I had 7.5 minutes of footage and it takes an hour to download and I had 3 memory sticks.
Jeez.
And so my big day, which another thing that doesn't explain on the doc is that the whole entire production took 10 days to film, and they all weren't back to back.
Okay.
The first 3 days were back to back. But by the end of those 3 days, I was going to be done with 2/3 of my script. And so they were going to be hefty days, but I never had planned them on being 18-hour days.
Sure. Okay.
And so we ran into technical difficulties and issues with that, but the doc makes it just seem like
it's just non-stop.
Every single day was this day of grinding people to the ground. I had plenty of food. I had plenty of things to take care of everybody. Some of us knew that we were going to have to push.
Right.
Because we have to get through the shots, get through everybody. By that Saturday, we ran into other issues that's not really hinted on the doc, that we were about to be kicked off of my cousin's property. The owner showed up and suddenly said, "What's going on here? I'm having neighbors giving me calls. You guys are making this film shoot that's this big commercial thing, and I was never involved." And so he was about to, kick us off, and I'm like, suddenly I'm, the only
Right.
day that we can do this. I mean, that's not shown in the doc. And so it's cut in such a way that just makes it seem like it's this massive hardcore stuff going on, instead of what I'm actually doing behind the scenes, making sure that my actors are taken care of, my crew's taken care of. And certain other crew members knew before we even started shooting that those were going to be the most demanding days.
Sure.
Everything else just kind of fell into place because one day was Jack Black, which was only 2.5 hours.
How was that?
It was the best day of my life. Literally. Because of everything that transpired that day.
Yeah.
It didn't end after I got done with him. We just had a good time that day.
Yeah.
The next day was John Heater, and that was only 1 hour.
How was that? So I'm similar.
John's awesome. I went to school with him. I never really knew
Okay.
him back then, and so there was all that, but that's 2 of 10 days.
Sure.
And then what was left was just kind of what needed to be fulfilled. And even on the last day of filming, I made sure that we all went to Brick Oven and had a great, massive, crew dinner for the executives and that to show that they, whatever. We also, when we did go to California, I took the crew that went down there to Disneyland. We all made sure that we were set up in a really good hotel. So there's kind of that thing to where there's not the whole picture. That's a slice of life of things that happened, but not everybody's knowing what it's going through. And so they cut it in such a way that, as Scott put it so, prolifically, that when he does a doc, he likes to show the warts in every thing. And, that's important, but you got to be careful of how you explain those warts, because if you're creating a wart to give the juice to push the marketing, that's a different story. Because all my family and friends, when they saw the document trailer being released, especially for the Kickstarter, they were like, what the heck? This is not you. Why are they painting this picture of you? And I'm like, it's a marketing pull, because originally when they weren't getting into the film fest, they said that they changed the title so that they could hook someone in to pull them into the thing, and suddenly it landed into Sheffield.
So how does that, because you're going around to a couple of events with Scott and some of the other guys, and you don't necessarily agree with how the movie's done. How is that between you and him then? Because you're going to be sitting through, there's one in Provo and Sheffield, you're sitting through, you're watching the movie, you're there, and I'm assuming Scott's going to get up and talk, and maybe you'll get some time with the microphone or whatever, but how's that working?
Well, so originally when we were, so I got to kind of build up to your answer. So originally when I was more or less demanding to see the movie, there were some things that we had to work through to finally get to that point. And when it did come to that screening, it only could be my wife and I. It couldn't be any of my kids, couldn't be anyone else. And something that kind of got me some red flags going on when I'm like, well, why can't they be there? Well, we need to kind of sit down and talk about it. And I'm just like, okay. He's like, I need you to be objective and subjective and all this other stuff. I'm like, okay. And then when I saw it, I'm like, okay, there's some things that I wouldn't have chose as an editor to leave out.
Yep.
Because if you kind of focus on one thing, it changes the feel of the story. And there is this nice, okay feeling of showing, as a director, and then all of a sudden it just takes this 90 degree. And then before you finally get tired of hearing that, Jack Black is brought in. And so there's like this kind of weirdness as you go through. And so by the time we got done with that, my wife and I were just like, there's some things in there that shouldn't be in there. I mean, they were saying how much my wife was making, and it drew this picture that I was doing absolutely nothing for my family, and that my passion is so strong, I'm leaving everybody behind to make this passion. This movie's going to happen no matter who I hurt, no matter who I take to the hospital. It's going to happen so that it can be unsuccessful. And so it's just kind of like, okay. And then they said, well, we're not going to take those parts out and stuff like that. It all is, what drives it. And there was some footage that I actually, from the very beginning when it happened on the day, I knew that they were going to put it in. And I told them I would literally have problems if, the thing is that it was juicy. It was, this one sentence that you say after this scene happens is just what it all comes down to, is that you're about to lose your home. And I'm like, yeah, but still, there's times that that someone's playing to the camera. I don't need to play the camera. I just do my job. And so by the time we got to Sheffield and all of that, it's just kind of like, if you truly know who I am, you'll get it. You'll see originally, for what he says, the vision that he was trying to portray. If you don't know who I am, you're going to go the opposite direction.
Sure.
And that's why there's been 2/3 negative reviews. It's great and all that it made it into the Hollywood Reporter, and there was, kind of some good stuff that came out of that. And then a few other tidbits that more or less just seems like they're just pulling from their own same thing. But there's been these others that even the review that came out of Sheffield literally ripped me in half. They were just tearing down, I as a filmmaker, and that's not being a critic. A critic is being non-judgmental in that you just kind of look at both sides. You don't just suddenly keep just hammering this thing and make it seem like it's truth when it's not, because it's all based off of someone's opinion.
So in the end, are you glad in the end that happened, or what's...
The documentary, no. After how it's now being twisted and everything else, if we would have known where this was going to go, we would have said no.
So what was the deal in the beginning? Was it like unfiltered access, unrestricted access, 24/7? How long did it take?
So that's what's so funny. The reviews are saying it took 3 years. It took 9 months.
Yeah, that's what I was like, 3 years. Like, geez.
Yeah, it doesn't take 3 years for me to make a movie.
Yeah.
And as I said, after I got pre-production done, we did 10 days to shoot within a month and a half. So, I mean, that just shows the time frame. And then I knew I was going to be the one to edit it. it took me less than 3 weeks. It would have been faster if I would have been able to edit on my own platform that I'm used to. I had to go back to Premiere that I hadn't used for 14 years.
Okay.
And then things happened after that. Now, everybody jumped ship after production, and people don't understand that. And so it turned into this year project afterwards to where we had to get, written authorization to allow certain people to be in the movie. We were waiting for issues with SAG because my movie originally was not a SAG movie, and then it turned into one. And so that changes things. SAG should have been brought in at the very beginning if they knew that there was going to be a possibility.
That's Screen Actors Guild?
Yep. And so there's that. And then came, we still were finishing music and then post things. And then all of a sudden it was done. And that was it. And I had submitted it for 5 Film Fest and none of it made it in. We later found out that my video that I had uploaded, there was some audio issues that I did not know about. Because someone else actually uploaded it. It wasn't me that uploaded it. And so, because I didn't have my own account at that time, and then finally I got a without a box thing, and then I started figuring out. But there was no money backing to submit to Film Fest, so I had to figure out, I had to wait for tax refunds and stuff. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it because the money that I had raised through my own investor was gone. And so, and because they put their feet in both their own doc and my movie,
right,
there was kind of this thing going on. But when it came to filming, they were concentrated on their doc. Now, to answer your question, at the very beginning, before even them, people have tried to, they've approached me because they wanted to do a doc on me.
Have they? Okay.
And I've usually said no. There was one person I said yes, and it was just for a school project type of thing, and he did a really awesome job because at that time I was filming New Breed, my vampire movie, and it was just, the timing just seemed good. And then everybody else, I didn't want to have that intrusiveness of my family, my kids, and that. And then this one, they pitched it to where, well, what we'd like to do is we want to see the magic of Groo. We want to see how you do everything. And I said, well, my issue is that in 2011, I did a film called Ruby. And that
I actually watched it last night.
Really?
Yeah, on Amazon.
What'd you think?
That was pretty good. I thought, to be honest, I thought the main actress was pretty good. Ruby.
Haley did a sweet job.
Yeah.
And it was actually kind of cool how I got her. But in general, there were so many problems that we ran into on that one. And I broke my XL1 camera on that one. That was like the end of that camera, which really affected my post-editing for all my pre-existing films for a different reason. But I was done doing feature-length movies.
That was the one
that I said I went publicly and I said I'm done because I'm at a point that I can't keep pushing this volunteer resume stuff.
Sure.
And I'm tired of dealing with those type of actors that, we're there for a day's shoot. And on a side note, my comment that I say, you're on my time, I'm not on yours.
Yep, that's on the trailer, right?
Yeah, it is there. What do you feel when you hear that? Does that sound narcissist?
Well, to be honest, so I've worked in the industry under a lot of project managers and whatever else, and it's like there's a lot of truth to that, right? It's like if you're coming in here, the way they portray it to build up this narcissistic view, right?
This is the bottom line. If you're there for volunteer, you're going to have your normal job from Monday to Friday. That Saturday, you're mine.
Yep.
Because if you come to me and say, Steve, I have a date at 6 o'clock this night, so I need to be done by 4:30.
Right.
And you're my main actor. Now, yes, I have all these shots I can do, but I can usually get them done in my time frame.
Yeah.
But if all these people keep coming up to me because they've planned something on that day that we've spent 2 months to lock out.
Right.
And how it's portrayed in the doc is that it's my way or the highway. Well, it is, but not in a narcissistic way. It's just flat out, we have 10 hours to get these.
Yeah, and you volunteered and you committed to, yeah.
But someone did not believe that on my set. And that's what they drive on that. So with all that said, back with filmmaking, it's like, okay, well, we have to get done with this. But what's going to happen that day? Anything's going to happen. So when it came to the doc, they wanted me to do everything all over again. And I'm just like, okay, but we're going to get funding this time because without that funding, I'm not going to go through this doc without it.
Right.
And so that was the start of it, to where they introduced me to Jared Harris, which in the doc they made it seem like it was my first producer ever in my career to ever be introduced to. And it's like, okay. And with that, they said, okay, what would you like to work on? And I threw Unexpected Race into it because I knew I've already done it before. I knew what was wrong with it before. I knew how to fix it. And it's one of the easiest features to do, because if I'm only going to have so many people, I can work around the movie to where if we can do this one shot this one day, it takes a big load off. And usually I work backwards. I usually like to do the climax of a movie first because it involves more people. If I can get that first one done, the rest is just, until it gets done. It gets really easy as you go. And the Kickstarter failed. And so, they drive that down in the doc as well, that, it was unsuccessful. But they also don't explain why it wasn't. Nobody was sharing. This is a different time frame when it comes to Facebook and social media. They didn't explain that they themselves were not helping me out. Someone was on a vacation for 3 weeks into it, and so they didn't even post it on theirs. I had to literally beg for them to post it on their stuff. And it was just kind of like, well, you're on your own, Steve. And it's like, okay, if you're going to put your name down as a producer for my movie, producers, you're dropping cash, or you are producing. It's not like I've now introduced you to someone, I'm done for the rest of the production. And that's exactly what happened. And so when you have that kind of feel, yeah, of course you wanted me to do everything to get it on your doc, but I had warned everybody from the beginning I didn't want to do that again.
Do you think they set you up for failure on purpose?
I don't know.
Because it would make a more interesting story?
I can't say that because I'm not them. But it also, as I learned about certain things later, it kind of got me wondering if it was, who's to say that it wasn't to make it look like I'm a joke? Who's to say that 206 movies, or at that time 177 movies in 17 years, wasn't to show that I'm just wasting my time? Jared Hess even says that, it would be wise for him to get a job to support his family, but he can't give up film because it's his way of dealing with life. I don't know where the heck that came from, because I don't make films to deal with life. I don't have depression. I don't have anything where I'm trying to prove anything. I'm an entertainer. I've entertained for years. I'm out to make movies to make people happy, make people sad, have people think. And one of the biggest things in filmmaking is you should never worry about how much it took to make the film. And the reviews make it look like that I'm out to make these low-budget movies because that's what it took to make these movies. But I'm not getting the independent filmmaker title.
Right. It's just
I went
Stephen
to school,
Groo, king of low-budget movies.
Yeah, and even micro-budget and stuff like that. And I'm just like, you're really kind of demeaning me as a filmmaker. And if that's what it was made out to be, then, I hope they can sleep at night.
So I'll pose you this question, and I'll let you think about it, and then I'll explain why I'm asking you this question. Because it's at this point in my life, it's very important to me. So what's the difference between dogged and delusional? So I know the reason why I asked that. So I worked for 10 years in oil and gas. I'm a chemical engineer, and I just quit my job.
Okay.
So I quit my job to be a full-time writer. So I came out with a kid's fantasy novel, Epic Adventures of the Techno Wizard, in April. So I'm writing full-time, doing this podcast. So I'm doing something totally different, right? So some people can look at me and be like, and for the vast majority of people, I'm like, way to follow your dream, way to get after it. Yesterday I interviewed world-famous artist Greg Olson. And he told me some, the early years where, he had to ask his in-laws to help pay for the mortgage. They were super lean. He wasn't selling anything. And he had a lot of sort of funny stories in the early years that was super slim. And it took a long time for him to build up enough portfolio to finally get going. You look at that story. You look at him now. He's world famous and really successful. And you think, yeah, that's just what it takes. It takes, that first sort of eating ramen noodles and scrimping to make it work. Then on the other side, what's the line between someone saying, you got to be dogged to make it work, and oh man, because someone could easily come up to me at any point during those first couple of years or decade or whatever it takes and go, oh, you're delusional, man. You're not going to make it work. And on the other side, you could say, oh, way to follow your dream. It almost depends on how you spin it. So I want to know how I know, because I want to know whether I'm dogged or whether I'm delusional. Because I mean, I watched the roast you do of yourself, right? I watched that last night. So you've read people's comments. You know what some people say. So in your mind, what is the difference? I would imagine you're saying, look, I've been dogged after these 20 years. I've been pursuing what I'm passionate about and what I love. Other people would call you delusional. So what's the difference? How do you separate those two out in your mind?
Okay,
being dogged versus being delusional.
So here's the big issue. What have I done in 20 years?
Done 207.
But see, here's the key. In that 20 years, I've done 206 movies.
Right.
Is that full time, or is that part time, or is that off to the side?
Right.
That's a question to you.
I would imagine that's full time.
No.
Okay.
And that is where the lie is.
Okay.
Because everybody is looking at it as that I've spent 20 years wasting my time.
I don't know that that's that. I don't know that it's even.
But what I'm saying is that because the exact words that you mentioned with the dogged and the delusional came from a very specific review.
It did. Yep.
And so I know exactly what review that was.
Yep.
And I'm not going to go into that. But here's the problem. The doc does not explain what I've done for 20 years. Right. They make it seem like they take one comment that I said of that I've not had a full-time job. I have had a full-time job. See, this is the thing. When I went to UVSC from 96 to 98. From 98 to 2000, I went to BYU. Yep. In that time frame, I was not married. I didn't get married until I was 26 years of age.
That's ancient here in Utah.
I really don't care.
I'm just kidding.
But I know what you're saying. And when was I making movies? Now, if you talk about all the stuff that helped me to get into the film program, it was a whole different story. Yep. All the film projects that I did in the school to get my grade was another. The other were my side things that by the time I was getting towards the end of graduation, I was told to get my own equipment and do my own thing. And my first major picture at that time was Gifted Ones. Okay. Now comes the big question. As a student starting out, when do you shoot?
Weekends, evenings?
There is the answer right there. Every Saturday for 13 Saturdays, I film Gifted Ones. Now, is that delusional?
No.
Is that the only time you can do it as a student?
I would say that's exactly dogged. That's the reason why I bring this up. So I was, full-time engineer for 10 years, and I wrote in the evenings, every evening, right? And I spent 7 years working on a book that I never published. I put it on the shelf. 200,000 words, got it edited, got a beta read, submitted agents, got rejected, whatever else, shelved it, and then when I moved to Montana, I wrote in the evenings, and I had a super tough day job. Wrote in the evenings, was able to generate this, got rejected, I've self-published it, I put it out there. So again, I'm kind of like, what's the difference? I'm sure someone could follow me around with a camera, and someone could spin something to be like, Thayer's delusional. I guarantee they could.
But see, they're only going off of what was put in front of them. There's missing information. Right. And the biggest part is that what have I done for 20 years? And it makes it seem like that I've never tried to support my family. When I got married and we started having kids, I was working. And then finally I chose to go back to school. Now, is it wrong to make movies while you're a student?
No, I wouldn't think so.
Is that wrong, still trying to work and go to school and provide a family and do movies off to the side?
No, I'd say that's someone who's dogged and passionate about what they do.
So I'm building off of what you're saying. And by 2001, I told you I did Ruby.
Yep. Ruby was 2001?
2011.
2011, yeah.
2001 is a different story. Get my ones mixed up. By then, was I still shooting Saturdays?
Yeah.
I was still shooting Saturdays. Is that delusional? No. Is it taking a day off to shoot my passion? Absolutely.
Right.
I stopped doing feature-length movies because I was affecting too many people. And I couldn't handle that as a director because I care about my cast and crew so much that I'm just like, you know what? It's harder on me trying to handle 30 people for these epic action films.
To do something that's a little more.
So I started going to the shorts and started focusing more on using my family and us enjoying what we were, and then all of a sudden the doc came into play. And the doc changed
When was
things.
the documentary filmed? 2016?
Yeah, 2016 in August.
Okay.
But that was for the feature movie time frame. It had already started in 2015 in November.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they had been getting this process up to the point because we were in pre-production. We didn't know if we were going to get Jack. I didn't feel we were going to get Jack because I've never been that lucky. And so, and then, the production has to go on. And there came one moment in the production, I noticed everything was falling on my shoulders. And I said, what you guys need to understand is that I'm about to sacrifice everything to finish the doc, or finish my movie.
Right.
That's not in the doc. Because they don't have that footage. And here's another thing. You've seen the trailer.
Yep.
When you hear Jack talking to me, I'm sitting in my basement. I wasn't in my basement when I talked to Jack. And when you hear the conversation, that's what you're seeing. And guess what? We were in St. Cloud's office when I talked to Jack. That scene that you see cut is when I'm talking to John.
Right. Yeah,
and so
that would be...
And when they show a scene where my DP, I didn't feel that person was a fit for me. I was going to ask them to do a different role for me. I've never had professional behind the scenes done. I've always had to do it because I'm a one-man band. No one told me that there was a camera on her side.
Right.
So they could record what she was about to get hit with because everyone thought I was firing her.
Have you ever fired anybody?
I've never had to fire anybody because they usually walk.
You have had people walk?
I've had people walk.
Yeah.
I had one person, if I'm not on in the next hour, I'm walking. I'm just like, do what you need to.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting to you to where you'll be done. And even on that big Saturday I told you about that we were being kicked out or almost kicked out, I had cast members coming up to me saying, is there any time in this future that we're going to be on frame? And that's in the doc.
Okay, right.
You getting kind of a
picture? Oh yeah, no, for sure.
So
that would be my biggest fear. If someone came to me and said something, that would be my biggest fear.
So to answer you, who is the delusional ones? It's everybody that views it and comes up with a critical response. Because I'm not delusional. I'm very capable of all my ideas to where I would love to make it big sometime, but there's certain productions I've made that I know they're not going to go anywhere. But I need to make a story. I want to do something enjoyable with someone or a thought that just comes in. I'm like, I want to see that now on frame.
Right.
And I'll even ask people, is there anything that you guys would like to see? And one person or several said, we like to see senseless action. So I spent a month and a half and did an action featurette. And I played half the characters, but you didn't know that unless you know who I am. And after it was all done, it only got like 25 hits the day I released it. And the few people that were asking, so when's your next project? Right. So it became this feeding free entertainment. And, the sensible thing is that this time that I'm putting in, I'm an artist. Someone makes a picture or writes a book. There is the aspect of you need to put bacon on the table so you can make more books.
Right.
Make more paintings so they'll sell. My goal at that time was to get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Because nobody was sharing my things. How do you get the attention of people?
Right.
That's really hard to do. And they demonetized all my stuff on YouTube this year on February.
Why did they do that?
Because I didn't have 1,000 subscribers. Because they changed their revenues on how they did things. Now, yes, take it. Some of my stuff hasn't even got 100 views on it. But there's some that have generated enough to where it adds up after a while.
Right.
And, I'm not saying that I want to put everything into YouTube. I'm the type of person that if I have 30 pokers in the fire, then my hope is that there's a little jar that you take like to Las Vegas and hope that the ka-chings all add up for something, maybe a supplemental income off to the side, something that might help pay some bills while I'm out finding others. The doc only explains that I finally found a part-time job working for Ivory Forge. They didn't show that I also got a job at Home Depot. I had to stop to do the directing to make the movie.
Right.
After the movie was done, I had to go find a job. They don't mention that in the doc. They just make it seem like that I'm sacrificing everybody for the sake of the movie. But they didn't show that I did get 2 jobs that equaled full time.
You still have those jobs?
No, because the one I was laid off from and the other one was actually getting kind of too dangerous for working. Plus I had some house issues that needed to be taken care of, so I suddenly had to switch in. But I then went back to filmmaking and started working for companies and helping them edit stuff. But see, that's not in the doc because the doc was already done.
Right.
And so everyone's just not getting the full picture. You're getting the story that someone's putting for you, but you're only getting bits and pieces because it's a doc. But see, there is docs out there that's realism way of shooting. You lock the camera down and that's what happened. But see, they want to make it more into a narrative, something that can pull you through to see, who I truly am. Do you truly get it, who I am in the end? Well, in that slice of moment of making that movie.
Right.
And then just a few tidbits of, yes, I'm a family man and stuff like that. But when a review can turn around and say, well, gee, he knocks it out with all these cast and crew members, but man, at least he has time to swim with his wife in the hotel. And it's like, well, yeah, and that's why in the roast, you mentioned the roast.
Yeah.
What did you get out of that, aside from me listening to people? Did you get the one message that was in it?
Well, I watched it. It was late last night when I watched it, and I thought, number one, it showed that yes, you do at least hear some of the stuff that people are saying and listen to it, that you're self-aware of it.
I pretty much hear everything.
Right.
When I know that it's went public.
I thought it was a way probably for you to preempt some of the stuff that was coming out, right? Some of the reviews that were coming out that weren't.
I was actually doing kind of an anti-campaign against the doc. Yeah. Because the negative you're about to hear is going to be one thing, but there is negative that people are always going to say, because no matter how much a movie costs, there's always going to be someone that's not going to be happy.
Oh, of course.
And even in the doc, it's just, I bring up a car analogy, and it doesn't matter if it's a $1 million car, someone will find something wrong with it, either the color, a scratch, whatever.
Right.
And it doesn't matter with my films. It's just like, look, just see it for what I'm trying to bring towards you. Don't look at it for the mechanics of, oh, there was this problem. And some people have not got it right. I mean, the 30-second question that it takes for me to bring up how my editing is off and my continuity, which is completely outrageous, because I'm kind of a father of continuity. If one shot their hands are up here and the next shot it's down here, what happened for their arms to get from here to here?
Right.
And I always want to make sure the continuity is there. And they mentioned that I was leaving these 2-second gaps and stuff like that. It's like, what the heck? And it's like, okay, how can I implode on their own comment?
Right.
It took me 30 seconds just to read it. And that's why at the end this is like, so in short, you suck in editing. Literally, the roast is proven I am a filmmaker. I have special effects in it. Yeah. I have good acting. I have real acting that's going on in there. I'm being myself. I'm also being a major critic to myself, which critic can only go so far. If you're actually just throwing darts and trying to cut the person up, you're not being a critic. You're just being a flat out, sadist. But anyway, and then the one line that I'm drawing to your attention, which, this will ruin it for everybody, is the line to my twin, Stefan.
Right.
And I mention, we're brothers. You have the same face as me. What? And then he goes, I wear glasses. And I consider myself like Clark Kent. Yeah. Nobody will ever know who I am. There's the message of the roast. You can throw whatever you want. In short, you won't know who I am if you're going to be that type of a person. And then it ends with my family, which I had a lot of bite from some other family members, like, why would you do that to your wife, your kids? I'm like, because it's funny, because people still don't get it. My wife's comment actually goes back to a movie that we made for our wedding day. We did the interview of the bride and groom type of thing. And the question that was asked is, what do you think it's going to be like being married to a director? And then she goes, oh, being married to a director is going to be like, and then it cuts to the explosion scene of Lost Ark with everything exploding around them.
Right.
And then it cuts back to her saying, no, it's just going to be a lot of different worlds and stuff that's going to be, fun. And so that was kind of just a recreation of what we did 15 years ago. So, I did the roast. I haven't seen any negative trolls coming on, because technically, what are you going to say negative that hasn't been said already?
Sure, that's why I think you preempt a lot of the, what are you going to say after that? He's obviously already said all the stuff that...
And then it ends with me actually saying, at least I have a wife. And so if the negative comments want to say that, I'm swimming in the pool, how many people in Hollywood are not married? How many people have had infidelity that's ruined their marriages?
Right.
But, I still have a family right now because I still care about them. And this is entertainment. But it's not taken over my family, except for part of Unexpected Race when I had to sacrifice a lot. But it's not like I'd ignore my kids when they come home.
Right.
If I'm still tired, I'm still going to be with my kids. But everyone knew which days was going to be what. And it's not like I'm delusional, because why? I'm working around everyone's schedule, making sure everyone's taken care of, making sure that when certain things are done, things are done. And then you can do whatever, and I'll let you know when the screening is. It's just, that's filming.
So do you ever plan, I swear I thought I saw on Facebook a couple of months ago where you said you were going to pull the plug. Mm-hmm. You were going to stop doing it. Is that still?
Yeah, so July 1st, I've actually pulled publicly releases. And I've been going literally non-stop since then, remastering the last 20 years of certain films.
So a lot of them have popped up now on Amazon.
And so as of now, I'm waiting for 6 more movies, short and features, to be cleared through Amazon, and I'll have 20 movies.
On Amazon.
On Amazon. And nobody out there can say that they can do the same.
So are you still making more? Or are you...
Oh, I have some in the pipeline, but they're not going to be released publicly. Because now I'm in the mode to where we're going to see if we can start generating funds from what I've already done. Because many people don't know, it took me 17 years to finally get music rights.
I was going to ask you, how did you get people compose your music? I was
So
listening to Ruby, I was like, where does he get his music from?
So Ruby is from Jason Adams. He actually composed that. At the end of that, he started to compose the old Unexpected Race 2003. And he made 3 or 4 songs for that. And then he had to back down because he was getting too busy, because that's not his full-time career either.
Okay.
He's a nurse. So
he's pretty good as far as music.
Oh, he's awesome. And then I was able to get the funding to pay him to do Unexpected Race 2016. And so I have him, but I've known Mark Petrie for almost 17 years. I knew him when he was getting started. And
who's Mark again?
So Mark Petrie is an epic music composer.
Okay.
The last trailer of Avengers Infinity Wars, he actually did the music to that.
No kidding.
And if you Google his name or you go to YouTube, his music is gorgeous. And if you knew his story, how he came to be, it's a doc in itself. But anyway, because he finally got established and worked with a few other composers, he came out with royalty-free music. And so I finally got some money to buy action, drama, suspense.
Yeah, could you buy like a license for a year's worth or whatever?
Actually, forever.
Is it forever?
And
so you can do commercial, yeah.
And so 2015 was the start of I started to remaster things. And
so that's you're doing more music, you're doing different special effects, or you?
No, I was taking out the track and putting in new, because usually I do it right the first time when it comes to editing.
Okay.
It only depends on technology and software if things change. Now recently I've taken those movies that I had remastered back then and added movie filters and some other sound effects I didn't have, so I upped it one more time, and that is now the finished product for Amazon, Vimeo, and stuff like that.
Okay.
And the thing that was different was I've never done closed caption before. So a month ago, I had to figure out how to do closed caption with Vegas Video. It actually turned out to be fairly easy, but it takes time to do that. So with my son's help, who's 13, we turned around and did 20 productions in 4 weeks. And I did Ruby in 1 day, and that took about 11 hours. And then re-rendering them took like 12 hours, and then spitting them into other formats that they wanted on those. It was a time process, but I look at it as this might hopefully come into play if between the doc and all this exposure and being on Channel 2 News the other day, I was hoping that it would generate the traffic that I'm looking for, because I'm not looking for 5 people. I'm not looking for the free entertainment.
Sure.
I'm looking for the ones that they can turn around and say, I am a fan of your work. Where can I see it? Because that's always going to be the question. For 20 years, I've never heard of Stephen Groo. 4 years ago, KSL does a big article that said there's 4 filmmakers that you should know in Utah, and I was number 1. And then JT Christensen was number 2, Jared Hess was number 3, and Graham Supertramp or whatever is number 4.
Right, yeah.
That was 4 years ago. And so, even back then, it's like, well, where can I see Steven's stuff? Well, all there was YouTube. Because I had Utah Wolf Productions back in the day.
Oh, yeah, there was tons of stuff. I remember scrolling through some Sunday, going through the old Utah Wolf Productions, and you just scroll through, like, this never-ending screen.
And so you had all that stuff back then, and then I had to close the site down because no money was being generated for me to keep it up and to pay bills. And so I'm just like, I'm not here just to do fans. I'm here to get work. And so we shut it down, and then in the last, couple of years, people are like, we want to have a website again. And so the end of last year, we just worked our tail off and created utahwolf.com.
Right.
And I was still preparing for this whole just upload of all this stuff, because last August I started remastering stuff.
Okay.
And so it's been a year now that I've remastered almost all of my things that I can. Because my music videos, I just uploaded them the other day. Lost 9 subscribers over it because they got flooded with 45 emails. But, still, it's what was on my website before and then all the new content. And so, 40 music videos is part of my 206. And so now you're starting to see content that's free, because I can't do anything to it because it's copyrighted music. It's music, Backstreet Boys and stuff like that. But see, people don't understand why I did the music videos. 4 of them were actually real local bands. Dr. Jerk, Mathematics, etc. I did New Shack last year with Winter in June, which is just literally all special effects. It was all green screen. I created the world, did everything. And then I did my own music video, Shattered Dreams, where that's my voice. Everything else was all experimentational. I wanted to experiment with new ideas. I wanted to say my version of the story with that song, and then we're actually singing it. Yes, it's not us, but our vocal cords and everything's moving. It's we're having a good time. But it also prepared me for my features. I could say, okay, I did this once before. Now let's apply it to something that I could hold the rights for. And so, I did the She-Hulk film pitch trailers in hopes that maybe something might get someone's attention. That was a full adaptation of the first comic, but people were like, this is cheesy. I'm like, have you read the first comic? My buddy's like, oh, it's a She-Hulk, and he says it very cheesily. Have you read the comic? It says, she's a She-Hulk, and it's a comic world, so, the doofuses are going to be the thugs and that. And so, people just, everyone, when they look at a painting, are going to have all different interpretations what the painting is. They're either going to like it or not, or it's going to be interesting.
Right.
Which is never an answer. Did you know that?
Explain.
So,
Explain, yeah.
So the fun part about getting to know me, there's 2 words you never use with me. Sure and interesting.
All right.
Because if I asked you, did you like the roast?
Yeah, and I would say, oh, it was interesting. I don't really tell you much.
If you said sure, it is a neutral way of actually saying no. Interesting is offsetting it to where it leaves it out into limbo.
Right.
And so it's not a definite yes or no, and it's not a definite committed answer, because if you didn't like it, how do you tactfully say you didn't?
Yeah, okay, I get that. I think where I'm at with the word interesting is, with interesting, there is something that pulls you to a certain thing. You might not know what it is. You haven't figured it out yet, right? You don't know whether it's like you're attracted to it because it's brilliant, or because it's creative, or because it's a train wreck, or all these spectrum of things hold our attention. So when I say something's like somebody,
well, as I said, it leaves you in a limbo land because you don't know what it is.
I think
it's
you're
a
right.
Big question mark.
I think you're right.
But when you answer it as interesting versus just using what the word means, but you use it in the sense of anything directed towards me, to where you really don't want to say no, you'll say it was interesting.
Right.
Because you don't want to offend the person.
Sure.
And
I get that. I get that.
So that's where.
But I would think, for me, for people who are interesting, is some of them I think I'm decided about them, and I just know that like there's something that draws me to them because they're talented, or they're funny, or they're entertaining, or there's something there. But interesting, I think you're right. I think it can be used as a smokescreen because I don't want to commit to saying anything. Because where I'm at when I'm saying I want to talk to the interested and interesting, I think the interesting are just people who do things differently. Like there is, you can have people that you like their stuff or you don't like their stuff, but you're still drawn to them, right? That's what I'm saying. It's either like attractive or it's a train wreck, but I'm still watching it, right? There's this vast spectrum of videos online where it's like I can watch something because it's like I'm super impressed by it, or as I said, it's a train wreck and I'm appalled by it, but I'm still glued to it, right? And so either interesting thing covers both. But well, what you're saying, you can use it as a
and it's interesting to bring up that analogy too, because how the reviews and how people are perceiving the doc is just, they're comparing me to Tommy Wiseau.
Wiseau or whatever his name is, yeah.
And I actually had to talk to Jared Hess about this, and I'm going on record on this one because I'm just like, I really don't know who this guy is. I looked it up, and it's all question marks. It's, some random Polish guy. James Franco did a movie called The Wall or something like that, and it tanked and stuff like that. And I'm just like, why are they comparing me to this guy? And he goes, you're not even in the ballpark of him.
In a good way or a bad way?
In a good way. Okay. Because he did one movie.
He did, right.
And you've done 200. And it's just kind of like, I know, but they keep pushing it that I'm the Utah version of him, and I'm not. And so, again, as you had mentioned before, are they painting this picture? Well, only if they were the ones that mentioned that I'm the Tommy. And then I saw another review that they interviewed Scott, and they were comparing me to these worst movies ever made, like American movie or something like that. And he's like, oh, I feel that, I'm not like that, but if I turn out to be like that, that would be awesome. And it's like, okay, I keep getting the low budget. I don't know how to film make. I am a narcissist. I'm just this person that is this insufferable person. What is the point of doing a story? Because it just makes it look like I'm delusional and I'm wasting my time.
Sure.
And what's the point? And so it's kind of funny how it all kind of comes around. But in the end, it's just like, well, but people are glued to seeing the movies. Or are they glued because someone else said it's the worst movie ever made? I had a comment made a couple years ago that one of my movies I did was worse than Trolls Part 2.
Love Trolls Part 2.
And it's like, okay, well, I saw kind of Trolls 1, and actually my cousin's the main actress in the movie. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, okay, but how is that any different than any other movie? The point is that each movie should be in its own category, or, because that's what they did to make the movie.
I think Trolls 2 was filmed in Utah.
I think Trolls 1 too was also, yeah. But again, it just, comparing it to another movie, you shouldn't be comparing it to another movie. You should just be talking about the one movie. I can't say that Unexpected Race should be compared to Gladiator. 2 different movies, 2 different budgets, but really it's just 2 different stories. And, and they keep making it sound like that I've wrote Jack Black into my movies, but what they don't see is all of his interviews. There's a reason why he wanted to be on my movies, because he wanted to.
Right, yeah.
It wasn't because he was roped into it. Do you think he was roped in because of the money?
No.
Do you think he was roped in because he's good friends with Jared Hess? Good grief. When I released my 100th movie, Chiquito, which was a film pitch trailer, it was Jack that actually got a hold of Hess to tell him that it was on my website. He's like, did you see Groo's new movie is up? Because he was going to my website, the old one. Mm-hmm. And... he owns 3 of my movies thanks to Jared Hess. He owns The Crown, Yen Rai, and Unexpected Race 2 film pitch, which is ironic because by the time it comes full circle, he got to be in the first one.
Right.
Because he chose to be in it.
So the next 5 years, how do you see them playing out?
I don't.
You don't?
I now am the type of person I take each day as it comes. Because there's dreams, they're always going to be there.
Yep.
But I'm at a point now that film-wise, I'm going to make movies until I die. And I don't care if you like them or not. Because I'm out to do what? Entertain one person. And that is what my goal has always been. To make one person smile. If I make 0 people smile, I still made a movie. And all the critics, they can criticize all they want because they will never make 206 movies in 20 years.
I don't think they
However it took me to make that 206, I still made 206. Did any of them go anywhere? Not right now. But right now I can say that 14 or 15 of them are on Amazon.
Yeah.
Are they good? That depends on the person watching it. Are some of them cheesy? Absolutely. Did I make them to be cheesy? Only one of them. Don't disturb my lunch. But when some doc information comes out thinking that I make movies because I want people to laugh at them, I don't like comedy. It's always been the lowest form of my genre. I'm known to do action and sci-fi and fantasy. And those are my favorites because you can get away with a lot. Action's the best because it doesn't have to be some heart-throbbing movie of two people falling in love, because you can only take so much of that sap online. And
so to get to know you a little better,
okay.
Now that we're talking about science fiction, fantasy, whatever else, I'm going to do a little bit of a lightning round here.
That's fine, because I know we're pressed for time.
Okay, so here we go. Best movie ever made?
Gladiator on a drama sense.
Okay. Worst movie ever made?
I would have to say Milo and Otis.
I haven't watched that movie in like 30 years. I'll have to go back and watch it again. I remember I liked it when I was a kid, but they're those movies you watched when you were a kid, and then you watch it again as an adult. You're like, I love this movie, and you watch it again, you're like, what was I thinking? That movie is horrible. I remember The Last Unicorn. Remember watch The Last Unicorn?
Loved The Last Unicorn.
Yeah, so I watched The Last Unicorn as a kid. I loved it. But the first opening sequence where the butterfly is going off, it's like, were they on acid the whole time they animated this? I was like, I don't know how long it takes to animate something, but you have to be a lot of acid to do that scene. It goes on for like 5 minutes, the butterfly going around the circle. Favorite director?
Steven Spielberg.
Least favorite director?
I don't know yet.
Okay. Greatest hero?
Real or not?
Fictitious, yeah.
Fictitious? One of my favorite comic characters is Cyclops from X-Men.
Cyclops, who did not get a very good shake in the movies. He kind of showed up, got beat up a lot, and then killed off screen.
But he's still there.
Oh, no, for sure, he is. I guess
that's movie-wise.
He's done better in the.
The best was the 1995 X-Men TV series.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. That's why I grew up on. I grew up on X-Men the animated series.
I own all the series.
Do you? Oh, I bought all the CDs or the DVDs right before I went on my mission. And I don't know where they went to, but I actually bought a couple. This is not too long ago, a couple months ago, and started showing my kids. But that's what that's what did it for me. I started with Ninja Turtles, but then X-Men was the one that really took it off.
But that's what's fun about my my collection, because my 80s collection, I have literally almost half the cartoons I grew up with. So I have Brave Star, Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs!
I have the whole entire series, and I have a little bit of Captain Planet, and then I have some Chip and Dale and Darkwing Duck. And
now, is Dinosaurs the one where they're normal dinosaurs, but then they they're like
they hit the button,
they hit the button and they grow? Oh man, there was an episode of Dinosaurs where they had to get like the Maltese pterodactyl or something, and I don't know why that stuck in my head after all these years, but me and my brother loved.
And then of course Transformers.
Oh yeah, of course.
Everything before and after the movie. So
greatest villain.
That would have to be the Joker.
I knew you were going to say that because you've
next to Mr. Sinister.
You've done so. Mr. Sinister, I heard they had gender swapped Mr. Sinister for the next X-Men movie. Do you know that?
I'm not surprised.
So Brittany Chastain, I think, is doing, because at the very end of Apocalypse, at the very end scene, they come in and Essex Corporation pulls it, right, and they get all the stuff. It's like, oh, it's Mr. Sinister doing next. That's gonna be awesome. One of my favorite X-Men cartoons is when they go to the X-Men get captured and go to what's the land called? Where all the dinosaurs and stuff, and then the X-Men get their powers turned off.
Yeah.
Savage Land. They go to the Savage Land, get their powers turned off. That's where Gambit kissed Rogue. So that's why I was like, that's the one. They can finally do it. That was one of my favorite. It's like a two-parter. So I'm a big Mr. Sinister fan as well.
Yeah.
Who's the worst hero? Who's the most pathetic hero?
The Tick.
The Tick? Never quite. They keep resurrecting him. They keep bringing him back. They keep making movies about him. I was like, I don't know of anyone who likes the Tick, but they keep bringing him back.
I watched the Tick, but he's just a joke.
Yeah. The worst villain.
The worst villain?
Yeah, most pathetic villain.
Worst villain. I'm just trying to think. Because there's so many villains out there, but then you're just kind of really...
Who's one that you just like... So on like the hero side of things. Like I have a brother-in-law who thinks Captain America is pathetic. I love Cap.
I think the reason why they rip on him is because he's so good.
Right.
He's not.
And he's getting a little bit darker as the series progresses. But like,
he's not dropping F-bombs. He's not having sex out of wedlock and stuff like that. So he's still the.
So who's a villain that people put, like a common villain that you're just like, I just don't get the guy. I don't understand him. I don't think he's awesome. I'm not impressed by him.
Well, if we kind of go off of some of the recent Supermans and stuff like that, I have not liked how they portrayed Lex Luthor or how they portrayed General Zod.
Yeah, I think Jesse Eisenberg is a turd in the punch bowl.
Well,
he's so bad. he's so miscast.
I was expecting a stronger, mature, 50-year-old man versus a guy that we're used to seeing in comedy.
Yeah, and he just didn't. I don't think he did well.
And he wasn't acting like Luthor anyway, so.
Marvel or DC, if you had to pick one?
They're both the same to me.
Both the same, indistinguishable? So if your hand was forced and someone said you got to pick Marvel over DC, got a gun to your head.
They're the same.
They're the same.
I don't believe in this war of one is better than the other because there's heroes and villains of both that are well done. Yep. How they portray them in story is different, but I have no control over that. But the point is they're still a movie.
Yep.
And so there's all these Batman movies. I like the original Batmans.
Yep.
I like all the original Supermans. I see like even Batman with Michael Keaton. I think he was the best Batman, and I think Tim Burton nailed it because it was the comic world of Batman.
It's definitely more comic.
And then you go Chris Nolan, and it's just kind of like that was like a modern day. If Batman lived in New York right now, this is what it would be like.
Right.
And that was well done. Was there a difference between the actors? No, they played Batman. They were both good, but DC, Marvel, they're the same.
Okay. I think I know the answer to this one, but if you had to pick Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Yeah, I knew that was a good answer. Best Star Wars movie?
Empire Strikes Back.
All right. So now, best Star Wars movie that is not 4 through 6.
Solo.
Really? You like Solo that much?
I have the Rogue One. The only scene I liked on it was the Darth Vader scene at the end.
So cool.
Because that was the real way that they should have been doing fights.
So you did not, because most people I've talked to like Rogue One, and they more than Solo. It's not they don't like Solo. They like
I like Solo. I can't wait till it comes out. The issues with Force Awakens and all that, it's, there's parts that I like, but I don't like any of the characters. I liked BB-8 and I liked Han Solo, but of course, spoiler, Han Solo dies. And, Rey is just suddenly within 2 weeks, she's a master.
Yeah,
and
that didn't make a lot of sense.
And the point of, her being alone and all that, and they create this story and then they just toss it and, kill Luke, spoiler, and all this stuff. And I'm not even excited for 9. It's just kind of it's like I've heard so much garbage online to where they thrashed so much because it didn't go their way, and there's a part of me that I'm just like, now I understand why Mark Hamill said what he did in his behind the scenes before the movie is released.
What was that?
He didn't like the way that they portrayed Luke.
I remember that, yeah.
And so it's just kind of like, okay. And then the teaser came out and it's like, dude, he's like this dark, all the Jedi should end. And like,
right.
Will he turn to the dark side? Because that's one of the stories that came after Return of the Jedi, is that he turns the dark side. Han and Leia have a set of twins, and then Boba Fett comes after the twins, because Boba Fett never died in the mouth. He crawled out.
Okay.
And then Luke turns the dark side, and Leia has to bring him back. And I'm just like, that's a story that should have been done. That would have promoted your 3 or even more. And so, and then Solo got back to kind of that gritty, the world of Tatooine and deserts and just how they did things, instead of focusing on, okay, we're going to do special effects in this shot. This is going to be some random shot that's going to be just a waste of time. And
right.
So.
All right. I already asked you this before we started. Are you going to the Renaissance Fair?
No.
I think that'd be right up your alley, man.
I'm really busy right now.
Oh.
I got so much going on right now. I was barely lucky to come here today. And
I
appreciate
it.
Full day film shoot yesterday, and we had a little one yesterday. So.
Well, what are you working
on? So there's just a company that's having their own movie for their kind of a big promotion to give the best of the year employee type of thing. And so they brought me on at the last minute to kind of do what I do best and become a one-man band to help out. So We shot out the salt flats the other day, which I've never done that. So that was fun. And then we'll be doing an all-day shoot tomorrow, and then I'm doing my editing. But we've already cut what I shot the other day, so.
Wow.
Because Tuesday is when they're having their big...
If you need it done, you need it done fast, someone call Groo.
That's how it is.
He's going to make it work. Best actor, your favorite actor?
Nowadays it is Chris Hemsworth
and
those guys. And I really like Chris Pratt. Because one thing that makes an actor is on and off of frame.
Yeah, Chris Pratt's awesome.
And I like how he's family-oriented. He,
pretty religious and openly so.
I was ready to say, very religious and Christian, and I'm just like, it's good to see that someone even in the midst of Hollywood is still,
I would agree.
And he has a happy marriage so far, so, right?
Actress.
Yeah.
Who'd be your best actor? Who'd be favorite actress?
It used to be Scarlett Johansson, just because I kind of liked a little bit of that. But I'm trying to... I like Eva Green. She's actually pretty good.
Who's Eva?
So in Kingdom of Heaven, she's the princess, the queen.
Okay.
She's played a couple really different roles. She was in 300 Part 2.
That's right. Okay.
She was nasty in that one.
Yeah. Oh, wasn't she in James Bond? Wasn't she one of the James Bond?
No, you're thinking of the French chick.
I swear.
What do you call it? I just watched it. World's Not Enough.
I thought... No, she is in James Bond. She is...
Skyfall?
No, she's in Casino Royale.
She's the love.
Girlfriend. Yeah, she's the love that gets killed.
I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah. Yep, no, I know exactly what you're talking
about.
Okay. Best song ever written?
I have to go by LaBouche, Sweet Dreams.
Okay.
Eurodance.
Elf versus a ranger, who would win?
Aren't they kind of the same? I think the elf would win.
Okay. What if he was in a forest that only the ranger was familiar with?
I still think the elf would win.
All right. Your best movie that you ever made? And let's take out Unexpected Race, because that was like probably your biggest budget and your...
But again, budget doesn't matter.
So what's your best one? What's the one you're most proud
of? I'd almost have to say Ruby, just because it had just everything in it. It wasn't just centered around one thing. But that would be on the drama level. I think two of my best recent stuff is Joker 5 and Red Riding Hood.
Okay. Your worst one. Is there any one that you're like, I can't believe I made that? Because I'll look back at something I wrote 10 years ago and be like, some of it I'm like, that's pretty good. And other parts like...
Thing is, I like all my productions. There's one that it would probably have to be the Mathematics, etc., Bear Wells, or whatever it was called, Lion, Bears, and Wells. Because I didn't have a lot of control in it being the director. They said, here's your actor, here's your actress, make it work. And the actor showed up without eating breakfast, which was fine, but downing 4 or 5 Red Bulls for his breakfast.
It's going straight into the bloodstream.
He was tripping by a certain part, and and
what was this again?
It's Lion, Bears, and Wells. It's on. I uploaded it the other day, and it's a trippy music video, because originally the band didn't want to be in it, but being that the type of director I am, the band needs to be in their own music video. And so we turned them into, one looks like a whale all blue in the face. One guy looks like a bear, and he's singing to the camera as he's singing to the main actor. And I'm just kind of like, oh my gosh. And then I added some glow effect behind. So it's a trippy music video. So it's just kind of like, if I could have had a little bit more time and control over it, I think it would have been better. But, all my other ones, there's always something that I was learning at that time. So.
Right. Wow. Let me see here. What would it take for me to be in one of your movies?
I really don't know now, because how I do my films, it's just they're little shorts now. So it's like, if I'm going to do something, then there's that.
It's going to be pretty quick.
What I do is, usually if someone's interested, really interested, not to be, a plant or whatever, then I just tell them, okay, well, this is a project that I'm doing soon. This is the time commitment. Do you want to do it or not? And like Joker 5, we had over 16 characters that had to be in that movie. And I play Joker and Batman. My wife plays Harley, and then my son plays Damon Robin. And then I have a buddy that's Nightwing. And so that part is taken care of. And then I brought back the original Riddler that I had before, brought back the guy that played Scarecrow. So I had to create a Superman, a Supergirl, Green Lantern. I had one person that already had the Wonder Woman costume. And so we had to kind of create all this stuff. One person had a Catwoman, but she lived out in Tooele, so I had to time it to where she was willing to come all the way down from Tooele.
Right.
And so usually I tell people, you know, if something comes up, you know, I can keep you in mind.
That's how dedicated you are. Where do you get all your costumes and props and everything? Do you have a deal with, like, what's that place called? The costume place downtown?
TaylorMade
or something? Because, like, you go look at, like, the Crown, they got, like, friggin' armor and swords and all sorts of stuff. Do you own all that? Do you rent it? Do you borrow it? Where does it come from?
I never rent it. Everything's all made.
So what, maybe like swords and stuff?
We bought that. Okay, so the swords,
I have armor, you got all sorts of stuff.
So when I made the crown itself, it was after I did Circle of Fire.
Okay.
And so Circle of Fire being the biggest fantasy movie I ever did and had over 55 characters in that movie, I had a seamstress. I actually had about 2 or 3 of them at the time. And everybody, which thought that this was funny, which they were joking around recently saying that, well, you're asking for people to pay for their own part. I'm like, what you don't understand is that they were actually having custom-made outfits made for them that they could keep at the end.
Yeah. No,
and so you pay for the fabric, you paid for the service of the seamstress, which was really cheap. And then in the end, you had an outfit made. The swords, I actually got a hold of a sword company that for him to have his name in the credits, he said, all you have to do is pay shipping. And they were $120 Swords of Darknesses, brand new, and battle ready. So you could bang the crap out of it and it wouldn't break. So we paid $20 for those swords. I've already had a sword collection before, so I just recycle my stuff through my productions. But I have how
many swords do you own?
You would ask that one.
I would. I got a bunch of Lord of the Rings swords in my car right now.
Maybe 20.
Really? Okay.
So I have everything from katanas all the way to broadswords to long swords and daggers and stuff like that. But
you have they just in some sort of
I had to get a storage. Well, because of the documentary. So what a lot of people didn't know is that there was a flood that took place on that 3rd day.
Really?
17-hour day, 18-hour day, 19-hour day that turned into an emergency at the end. I was on my last 2 takes of my movie, and all of a sudden all the ER texts started coming on saying, emergency, we have a flood in our basement. Came right back to deal with a half a foot of water in our basement. And then within a month's time, my in-laws decided they were going to sell. So someone that didn't have a job at the time suddenly is now have to figure out where he's going to move his whole family and everything else. So with all of that, I had to get a storage unit to put literally 2/3 of our house in, and then we moved into a matchbox at the moment. So with 6 people, 1 bathroom, and not a whole lot of space, it's a roof over our head kind of thing. But in the meantime, all my swords are there. Most of my production stuff was there until all these little productions I keep doing, and I have a crawl space there that I've turned into a storage unit. So I put all my production stuff there so I don't have to keep going back and forth to the storage. Okay. So I have all these containers that are all tunics, cloaks, wigs, weapons. I mean, I have everything. So
the fact that you are not just super tied into the Renaissance Fair is astounding to me.
I have a friend that's part of the Renaissance Fair.
You should be like the guy. You have your own Renaissance Fair wardrobe and armory.
I know. So the only thing that's really armor is the helmet that I bought for the crown. But there was some specifics of every production. There's always something that I was buying or something like that. And in that one, we had the blades from Blade that the Night Owls were using. And so, things like that. That was kind of a big production. So
when did you do that one?
2005.
Okay, I'm testing you.
Well, I did over 13 or 14 productions that year alone. 2005 is the biggest.
Jeez. How long did it take you to film your tribute to Utah?
It took 11 road trips, 6 months. 6 months, 11 road trips, 4,658 miles of Utah.
Holy cow. There's not much Utah you have not seen then.
I've seen pretty much most of Utah.
That's crazy. No, that was pretty impressive. I hadn't seen that one. I came across it.
Yeah, they did news specials on 4 and 5.
Oh, did they on that one? You have anyone ever get injured on set?
Yes.
Yeah.
Including myself. No, not really bad, just injured. But usually I try to save the scary stunts for myself.
Jumping off of stuff or doing...
Yep, so Unexpected Race 3, I'm holding on a car going about 35, 40 miles an hour with no ropes, and he's swerving.
What possessed you to do that?
Because it's a stunt and it looks real, and it was. And then I jump off the Provo Bridge at the mouth of the Provo Canyon. No big deal, but I had to turn and shoot the camera as I was going.
Right.
So I did 2 good takes of that, but...
So tell me about the stunt. So when you're on the top of this car, you just slowly lead up to it? Have you ever been on top of a car? Or were you just like, yeah, I can do that? Like...
Yeah, pretty much. I just said, do what you need to, and I just grabbed hold of the edge, and then it just shows me shifting as I was going, but it really is not as bad as it looks.
It's pretty easy to...
Yeah, I wasn't worried.
Yeah.
And then we had another one where in Unexpected Race 2003, we did a lockdown shot with the camera, and I had the 2 cars coming towards the camera, and the third was going to zoom as fast as he could, about 70, 75 miles an hour, and then cut across. And so my DP took off running, but I stood behind the camera because I knew who was behind the wheel. And then there was another scary stunt in 150 miles that I had to actually drive for the main character, to where it had to look like that he shifted the car and hit someone on the right bumper. And then the next shot is when she's coughing up blood. But I had to make it look like that, and that was kind of more of a scary because I actually thought I hit her. So, but she still had plenty of room, but just the angle that I had when I went, I'm just like,
kill somebody.
But they were safe.
Have you ever had anyone audition that you turned away?
So out of a certain window, I've only held 6 auditions ever.
So do you put casting calls out, or do you just...
Very rarely.
Okay. So you have your bevy of folks
I
you
have
draw from.
That's why you see a lot of people, and then I just kind of go out from there. Rarely do I go casting calls because I'm dealing with the unknown. I'm dealing with someone that's never worked with me before, and stuff like that. But the earlier days, I had 7 talent agencies underneath me, because before I did Unexpected Race, I was going to do a movie called The War in Heaven. I was going to recreate when Satan was cast down, and the Garden of Eden sequence in 30 minutes. I was going to pick something that no one has ever done. And I was 5 months into it. I had 210 extras. I had 7 archangels. I had a father and a Christ. And I was going to play Satan. And I had an Adam and Eve.
What happened to that one?
I sent my script to the church office building. They sent me a nice little letter back saying...
Cease and desist?
No, they just said, we strongly recommend you not make this movie. Because they can't tell you that.
Sure.
They just have to tell you, this wouldn't be a good idea. And it bugged me. And so I actually went to the church office building and talked to the head of the media person. I'm like, why? You guys, we're trying to make a mark in the world of being filmmakers without jumping up and down and saying I'm, LDS. And they're just like, because of the sacredness of it. Even back when they did the first Vision movie, they actually had to ask the prophet and the apostles if they would allow the Christ and the Father to be in the same frame. And I'm like, okay. And then they thought that there was something else that I'd written in that related to somewhere else, if you know what I mean. And I'm like, this is taken right out of the Bible, for crying out loud. Right. So it's just kind of like, I can't help that something else was done the same way. And anyway, I'm like, okay. So within the faith of saying goodbye to a 5-month project, in 72 hours, I had a new cast, crew. Week and a half later, we were already starting rehearsals for Unexpected Race.
Wow. So you repurposed that crew and everybody...
And
never mind, guys. We're doing elves.
And then less than 4 weeks later, we started shooting.
Wow. So watching some of your movies, you've got some actors that are good. You've got some actors that are not so good. Do you have people...
Okay,
if you're working with...
I'm going to stop you right here.
Okay.
I would like to know examples of what you feel a bad actor is.
Okay. So
because I've always heard this.
Okay.
And now I'm going to put you on the spot.
So I think in Ruby is a good example. I thought Ruby was a decent actress. I thought she was good.
Okay, but there's more than just her in the movie.
Absolutely. So I thought her father wasn't that good of an actor. The guy that he's her father in the beginning and then he dies. I thought he delivered his lines a lot more woodenly. He wasn't as...
But that's how I directed him.
Okay. So do you feel like...
he is actually from a talent agency.
Because so I when I watched that, I thought there was a distinct difference in acting ability from my perspective between her and the dad. Because when I saw when the dad delivered the lines, I thought it was a bit more, as I said, just a bit more wooden, not as natural. And then when she did, I was like, oh, this lady can act. She's an actress. I thought the main villain could act. I thought he was a bit over the top, but I think he could act.
I pushed him over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I said, you asked me what my best was. Ruby is because of what we did.
Right.
Because I wanted to bring the father down to a level to where he just was an average dad, but then, he's working for a drug lord. Right. And so how does he justify taking care of this nice family when he's working for a bad man?
Right.
And then to be slightly scared that, I did something tonight. And it's just like, this is what I done. And then he was dead the next day.
So you feel like you feel like looking back at your body of work, you have people that aren't as good actors, or you're like,
see, this is the problem. What's hard is that we live in a world where we like to compare, and we like to stand on a pedestal that we all know that we are gods and know what a good and bad actor is. And when it comes to independent filmmakers, this is why I said for budgets and stuff like that, it's getting to the point where it's kind of getting to where, who are you to say that they're a bad actor? Now, we look at these $100 million productions and then we say, well, that must be the bar. And then we see Trolls 2 and we say they never will compare to that. Well, of course, because they're two different movies. And so when you start comparing, it starts changing the reason why you watch the movie. Now, in the end, there's even times that I'll look back and just kind of go, I didn't feel it from this character. Does that make them a bad actor? No. We don't know what happened while they're delivering the lines. We don't know what the director was telling them. We don't know what was going through their mind when they were, doing that. Or, how is it you look at these other independent filmmaker movies and you have a character deliver a line? It's like, did they just say lines? And even how I've always directed people, I've never wanted people just to say lines.
Sure.
But the problem is people are looking at it and saying, I've had bad actors, I've had bad scripts, I've had bad. Prove it to me on what I'm doing wrong in a non-critical way.
I will say some of the acting, I'll take bad, because bad is maybe not very specific. I'll say some acting is more convincing and some is less convincing.
Okay, and see, that's much different than saying they're just a flat-out bad actor.
Right.
Because as a director, when you hear someone say, they were a good actor, okay, they were a bad actor. Right. And it's just like, okay, because what is the director's job in the movie? If you say they're a bad actor, what's that say to me?
Oh, in some respects it says you accepted it.
It's not some, it's all.
Right.
Because the director is over his actors.
Right.
And so if they were bad actors, it's the director's fault. And so there's always been something for 20 years I've never gotten the title for, and it's being a director. Even with the doc, I'm being ripped on as a filmmaker, but not as a film director. Because if you start breaking into, I'm a one-man band, okay, what are you going to attack this time? Is it my editing? Good luck on that. Is it my music? Good luck with that. Is my acting? Question mark. Is it my directing? Which shows my directing in the movie? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Cinematography. Two things I was always known for at the university, editing and cinematography. It was never directing. And so it's like, oh, okay, my cinematography was great. Okay, when did you know that I was running the camera? That you knew that I was the cinematographer? Because sometimes you'll see my name show up. Because I might not have crew that day. I'm going to shoot, and I'm going to give myself credit for that. And so, it's that kind of thing. So, I'm sorry to stretch this out more, but
no, it's fine.
In general, what else are you saying? Because you can't say Ruby to 206 movies. So what else did you see that you say is bad acting?
Yeah, or unconvincing acting, or like wooden acting. So I for instance, one that pops in the top of my head. What's the one where the guy goes to get the mermaid?
Tales of the Mermaid.
The crazy dude with the cross eyes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The fisherman.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty unconvincing as a fisherman.
Okay.
His accent was a bit off. Again, it wasn't like, I feel like sometimes, to me, bad and good acting is if something pulls me out of the movie, then it's not convincing, and I'll be like, oh, I can see that they're reading lines, versus that looks like I'm looking at a person that's not delivering lines, but it's just I'm a fly on the wall watching something, right? And when someone does something so stilted or so wooden or unconvincing, then it pulls me out. That to me, unless I investigate, I don't know sometimes necessarily why, but I was like, that's unconvincing because it pulled me out of the movie.
So to answer your question, I couldn't find an older gentleman to play the fisherman.
Right.
And this guy that I found, he knew an Irishman and he believed that's how he talked.
Right.
Even though I was on set telling him exactly how to sound like an Irishman, and he couldn't pull that off.
Yeah.
Because the accents can be actually pretty tough.
Sure.
And so I was contemplating if I was going to have someone actually talk for him, but I don't know enough older gentlemen to be able to play that. And so he actually was able to fill in just for that moment. And, I had to actually go to Lehigh to go fill him and then come back. So...
Yeah, I assume, you...
Plus, it's a film pitch trailer.
Right.
And so it's like I'm trying to give you the idea of it's all about this guy and going out as a reporter and then sees a real mermaid. And so that to me would be just this awesome, story.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, that's where when I think, so hopefully this gives you a bit more context. I don't know whether people are coming from the same spot that I am, but to me that's what it is. It's when something is unconvincing, or like when I beta read people's books. So as an author, people will send me the books. Hey, can you beta read and give me feedback? The way I do it is I start at the top, I start reading, and if something pulls me out of the story, I make a comment. Right? And I keep on going. I was like, I actually read for 4 pages, and I didn't notice anything. There could have been spelling, but it was just kind of seamless, and I just kind of felt like I enjoyed the story for that moment. And then they'll say something, and I'm like, and a lot of the times they'll be like, someone gets super upset, so upset that the girl punches a wall and, her hand's bleeding. And I'm like, have you ever punched a wall and had your hand bleed? Like, you'd have your hand jacked up for like 3 months. Like, that's way over the top. That doesn't make any sense to me. I was like, that pulls me out of the story. Like, your emotions are way over the map. They're way too over the top. So, I'll read, blink, it'll pull me out of the story. I'll make a comment. You should correct this. And it could be, unrealistic emotions or reactions or something that's inconsistent or, wait, you said that guy punched that guy? I thought that guy was on the other side of the room. It could be a blocking thing. So that's why I think when we talk about like a bad acting, or we talk about a bad script or a bad book, in my case, is something that pulls me away from the immersion of the story. That's the way I would define it. Is, I'm looking at Ruby's acting and I'm like, yeah, I can kind of believe it. But I look at someone like the dad, and I was like, he just kind of seems like some guy from my ward that was fed lines. It's kind of like what I feel like when I watched it, what he was versus. I think there was definitely a caliber difference between him and like a Ruby.
Well, and Ruby's a totally different character too. I mean,
sure,
you got
this they're doing
destroy her world, and
yep.
It's sometimes easy to be all suddenly frantic and screaming and in pain, and then all of a sudden just all the feelings ripped out.
But I mean, you look at any movie, there's major Hollywood actors that people think are bad actors because you're not convinced. They're dressed up in costume and they're given the lines. You're like, I don't believe you're some guy in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. I just believe you're an actor dressed up in costume that's given lines. And so if you can make it seamless, like that, I think Heath Ledger's Joker, that's why it's so good. It's because like you watch that and you're like, I believe in this. Like they're seamless. I'm not seeing Heath Ledger. I'm not seeing an actor. I'm seeing a crazy, deranged dude that I don't know what he's going to do next. And like the times where it's seamless to me are the times that it's the best performance. Whether it's a book, whether it's a movie.
Well, that's why even as
a
director, when I'm doing my storyboards, I make sure that the shots are not something that's going to pull you out of the movie, because you could have the best acting and then the other mechanics start taken away. You don't do rapid editing when someone's watching their loved one die.
Right.
You got to slow the shots and the edits down so that you feel the drama instead of cut. Do you love me? Cut. And you're just suddenly your heart rate's going. It's like, I shouldn't be getting my heart going up when someone's dying. Or so much shaky camera work. You're just like, it's just like I just took my couple of years of filmmaking and threw it out the window because I could do this with the camera. So
lens flare. So I thought, whether it's a punch that's. You'll see this in movies. I've seen it in some X-Men movies. Like I am the biggest Wolverine fan on planet Earth. But there's a couple of times when he goes to like slash someone, I'm like, he missed that guy. He wasn't, and it takes me out of the movie. So whether it's a stunt or whether it's a line delivered, whatever pulls me out of the experience, I think can be classified as bad. Now, people don't probably look at it as in-depth as I do with that sort of definition.
Well, you break it down instead of saying the whole movie is bad. Well, why? Well, because of this one scene.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
so anytime you have something that's, that pulls me out of the experience of the story, that shows the seams, that's when I think bad. But I think, I'd like to be more specific with it. But that's what I think. That's, when I'm looking at some sort of art, when I see the seams is when I can start to say, that's not as good. And then there's a whole other layer, like, is it actually a moving story, and is it, whatever else. But the glaring things, I think, when I'm looking at a story, I'm like, that person can act, that person can't.
Yeah, if you want complete cheese, wait for Don't Stir My Lunch to come out. Because that was shot to be cheesy.
Right.
So, it was making fun of Jackie Chan in Kung Fu movies. So.
More stunts in that one?
Oh, yeah. That was actually probably my first movie that some of us got hurt.
Oh, man.
Not even in the credits. If you watch the credits, if we look like we got hurt, we probably did.
That's awesome. Man, I think I've run through the vast majority of my questions. We've been here an hour and a half. It goes by quick.
Plus, I'm long-winded.
No, this has all been awesome stuff.
Just I like to fully explain myself, and you can edit.
That's why
I
don't intend to edit anything. That's why I like these longer form conversations, because in short sound bites you don't get all this stuff.
Well, you're slicing it like you do in the doc. Right. It's like, okay, but what led up to him saying that?
And that's like, I like the whole Joe Rogan style where they have a 3-hour conversation, because he'll talk about stuff that's politically sensitive or socially sensitive. But when you have a long conversation, you're like, even though the guy says something or the gal says something I don't necessarily like, after listening to him for 2 hours, I kind of understand where they're coming from. And it's not sliced, it's not spun. I'm not going to spin any of this. My podcast, I'll have like a 5-minute sort of conversation or a 5-minute little speech on the lead up to this interview, and then like a 1 or 2 minute close. This is the episode, and I want this to kind of stand on its own. I don't intend to edit anything other than just kind of master the sound. But it's been an interesting experience to have quit my job, to dedicate myself full time to something, to have a lot of people go for it, Mike. You got this. Follow your dream. It's going to take a long time. The first couple of years will be rocky, but the plane's eventually going to take off. And then I see other people like, where's an example of someone who's crazy passionate about what they do? I don't think you can get anybody a better example than you. But you catch a lot of flack for what you do. So this has been a bit of a puzzle to me that I want to work out. It's like, where is it that people stop saying, hey, dude, follow your dream, and they start saying, dude, you might need to wake up, right? I want to get the answer. I don't know that I have the answer, but I've thought this has been an enlightening conversation, and it's been interesting to kind of see, number one, behind the scenes of your documentary and kind of how some of that played out, and then number two, just to hear, that's a good point. In fact, that's the whole point, is that it's their documentary, not yours.
I'm all about Unexpected Race because that's what I did. That's right. That's my baby. And
well, hopefully it goes well at the Sydney. It's the Sydney Underground Film Festival is what it's called?
Yeah, because there is a Sydney Film Fest.
Right.
And this is the Sydney Underground. And
so what should people look for you next? Just look at more stuff coming out on Amazon?
Yeah, so literally I just tell people now, UtahWolf.com is my official website.
Yep.
They can follow me on Utah Wolf Productions on both Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
And then to go to Vimeo on demand if they want the 16 movies that I have up there, they can rent or buy. And then if they do have Amazon Prime, then there's over 15 movies now that's there, and there's 6 more, or there's 14 that's there, 6 more that's coming, so there'll be 20.
Awesome. Very good, sir. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll let you go.
Alrighty.
Sweet. All right, so there you have it. I'm very glad I was able to give Stephen a voice to kind of tell his side of the story when it came to the documentary. I think in the end he kind of felt like he got hoodwinked a little bit. that's would always be my fear, is this, sort of double-edged sword of getting more publicity and getting more exposure, but not having control of the message and what that's going to look like. I mean, if a camera followed me around and wanted to cherry pick my worst moments, I'm sure they could make me look more than insufferable. Right now, everything I put out, whether it's my podcast or my videos on Facebook or everything else, is pretty curated. I'm a huge critic of that fact. In some respects, when that goes too far and you end up getting something that I call lifestyle porn. If you don't know what that is, it's not exactly what it sounds like, but I wrote a blog post about it in 2017 that went a tad viral. I was accused of lighting the mommy blogging world on fire, but I will have another podcast to deal with that later. But yeah, there's definitely downsides, and it's dangerous to always put out this very curated message. But again, imagine if the exact opposite happened. If someone followed you around and put out the exact opposite of your curated message. Kind of not that they only showed his worst moments, but guy with a camera and power of the pen and the editing scissors can kind of create all sorts of stuff. So I can't wait to see the documentary and kind of see what I think of it. I also want to reach out to Scott Christopherson and kind of get his side of the story, the person who made the documentary. But anyway, I thought it was a really good interview. I don't have the answer yet. I don't quite know, as I said, the difference between delusional and dogged. I think we all have a gut feel for what it is, but I don't kind of want to go on that. I don't want to go on what a gut feel is. I think everyone kind of knows, I know it when I see it. I can kind of sniff it out, but I want a definition. And again, that definition, I don't know. It kind of just feels like success, which is odd because it depends on how you define success. Someone could make an argument that Stephen Groo has been very successful. He's gone after and done something that no one, to my knowledge, has done as far as be as prolific as he has been. I also got to see a little bit of footage of the polished version of Unexpected Race. I was actually pretty impressed. He actually showed me the scene where Jack Black is firing after some elf, and he filmed it in front of a green screen. I couldn't tell. So as far as the effects and the quality, definitely upped. And I wonder what Stephen Groo could do with a full cast and crew, with a full budget and everything else. I don't know. I guess we'll have to watch the Unexpected Race to find out. But hopefully you enjoyed the interview. Again, a lot of food for thought. So if you have any comments or want to contribute in any way, find me on Facebook, on Instagram. I'm very present on social media, and let me kind of know your thoughts about this topic, about hearing Greg Olson, someone who stuck it out and had to ask his father-in-law to help pay for his mortgage, and Stephen Groo, who probably maybe never got out of that phase, but is still on his weekends and whatever else producing his art. So here's to creatives, here's to nerds who answer the call, and hopefully we'll have someone else answer the call for next week. All right, until then, ciao.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Calling All Nerds. To find out more about Mike, his novels, blog posts, videos, and everything else interesting, go to mike-thayer.com.